Revealed, 3 sinister true lake house horrors that will leave you terrified and haunted forever. Mary Harris breathed in the crisp air of Pine Ridge, Wisconsin, determined to escape the hauntings of her past. But little did she know, the lake house she rented was steeped in terrors that would chill her to the bone. Shadows danced in the corner of her eye as she laid down the law for her teenage kids, Alex and Jenna, both still reeling from their father's abandonment. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to heal, but the tranquil waters shimmered ominously, whispering secrets that twisted the reality around them. That night, while the moon hung heavy in the sky, things took a bizarre turn. As Jenna sketched by the dim glow of the lamp, she suddenly froze, her hand trembling. "Mom, do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice quivering with fear. The sound that followed was a low, agonizing whisper, drifting through the trees, circling their heads like a predator hunting its prey. Mary felt a chill seep into her bones. She shoved the feeling down, attributing it to paranoia. Maybe the isolation was getting to them. "It's just the wind, sweetheart," she assured, though she could barely convince herself. As the days crawled by, familiar sights felt distorted. The way Alex recalled stories of folklore about the lurker, a spirit that demanded attention and revenge, unsettled Mary. "It's just a story, Alex," she said, though his fervor echoed in her mind. Pine Ridge became awash in murmurings of ghostly figures lurking just beyond sight, victims of their own ignorance to the land's tragic history. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. That very night, Mary's dreams turned into nightmares warped by twisted reflections. She bolted upright, the moonlight casting eerie shapes across the walls of the cabin. Barely gathering her composure, she slipped outside, driven by an urge to confront whatever loomed around them. The moonlight danced on the water, illuminating it eerily as it glimmered like ice. "Is anyone there?" she called out, her voice trembling, absorbed into the suffocating stillness. Something rustled in the trees, and her heart raced. Mary peered into the darkness, the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on her. "Help me," a voice whispered back, familiar and haunting, echoing with an ethereal desperation. Fear surged through her veins. Panic swept in, twisting into dread. She stumbled backward, the shadows congealing into figures that seemed to breathe. "Mom!" Alex's frantic call broke through her fog. She whipped around to find both kids huddled together, pale and terrified. Jenna clutched her sketchbook like a shield. "We saw the thing, Mom! It was here!" As those words jangled in the night air, Mary felt the walls closing in. Their safety was betrayed by the hushed tones of the locals, their hollow reassurances grating against her nerves. The isolation thickened, severing threads of sanity. What were they hiding? Above all, the rubbery grip of the lurker's legend clawed at her spine. Darkness fell once more, and the whispers returned, tantalizing, deadly, a chilling chorus echoing around the lake. Fear clenched Mary's heart. They were lost, swallowed by the very land they sought refuge in. As night's veil wrapped around them, the truth became unnervingly clear. They weren't just visitors at the lake. They had wandered into the heart of a buried horror that would not let them leave. Mary's heart thundered in her chest as she scanned the flickering shadows cast by the waning moon. The trees around them swayed, whispering secrets, secrets soaked in dread. "What did you see?" she demanded, suddenly feeling the weight of her children's fear pressing down on her. Jenna's eyes were wide, shimmering pools of terror. "A figure. It looked like a person, but wrong." Her hand shook as she pointed toward the direction of the lake. "I swear it was smiling at me, Mom." A chill clawed at Mary's throat. Smiling? The implications twisted in her mind like a venomous vine, tightening around her sanity. "It's just a trick of the light. Let's go inside." Alex shook his head, raw panic spilling from him. "No, we can't go in there. It's safer out here." Mary hesitated, trapped between the instincts of a mother and the terror that gripped her soul. "We need to stay together. There's nothing out here." But then, a soft laughter echoed through the woods. It was higher than normal, sharp and twisted, cutting through the air like a blade. The three of them froze. "Did you hear that?" Jenna's voice was a quivering whisper, eyes flitting toward the trees. Mary gulped, a cold bead of sweat running down her spine. This wasn't just a haunting. Something was here, playing with them, dancing at the edge of their vision, taunting them. Let's head to the car," she offered, her voice more frantic than calming. "No, Mom," begged, fear shaking him visibly. "We can't turn our backs on it." Mary squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the chilling laughter that seeped into her bones. "We need to go." Before she could move, another rustle emerged from the bushes. Mary's heart stopped. It wasn't just wind. Something was definitely lurking, and no amount of logic could shield them from it. "Look!" Jenna shouted, pointing toward the lake. It shimmered under the moonlight, and in its depths there was a shape. A pale figure, partially submerged, drifting slowly toward the shore. Mary's breath quickened. "We need to go back. Inside." It came out as a tremor, barely a whisper. Alex bit his lip, eyes glued to the figure in the lake. What if it's trying to say something? But before he could finish, the figure jolted upright, eyes hollow, grinning perpetually, its mouth a ghastly mockery of a smile. Mary felt the world spin as she stumbled back, her grip tightening around Jenna and Alex. "Get back!" she screamed, forcing herself to move, pulling her kids away toward the cabin. As they raced inside, slamming the door shut, the laughter morphed into a cacophony of taunts, slapping against the walls like 1,000 icy fingers. The windows trembled, vibrating with every dreadful syllable. "What was that?" Jenna cried, pressing her back against the door. Mary couldn't answer. Terror stole the words. A heavy silence enveloped them, but the shadows outside grew thicker, pressing against the cabin like a living thing, eager to swipe them away. "What do we do, Mom?" Alex asked, his voice cracking under the pressure. I don't know," whispered Mary, confidence slipping as fast as sanity. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. The only sound was the pounding of their hearts, echoing in the oppressive silence. Then came the knock, soft at first, then a series of urgent bangs reverberating through their bones. "Let me in!" The voice from behind was familiar and chilling, twisting a knife in their hearts. It echoed through the walls, pressing against them with primal dread. Mary's stomach churned. "What is it?" "Open the door, Mom." The whimpering plea was unmistakable, and as the pounding continued, it morphed into something more, a sinister chant. "Mary, let us out!" She collapsed onto the floor, horror crashing over her. What was happening? Were they all losing their minds? The knocking only grew louder, a festering wound in the darkness. Mary's breath caught. She could feel something lurking just beyond, waiting. "Mom, please!" Alex screamed. Before she could move, a dark shape snaked through the window, curling like smoke towards them. And then everything went black. What if there was no escape? What if they had awakened something that couldn't be contained? Questions swirled as Mary braced for the unspeakable. What awaited them when the darkness broke? Mary gasped, the sound of her breath piercing through the suffocating blackness. Her heart raced like an animal trapped in a cage. She forced herself to sit up, the floorboards creaking beneath her as she felt around for Jenna and Alex, feeling the warmth of their bodies nearby. "Are you okay?" whispered Rary, panic threading through her voice. "I'm scared, Mom." Jenna's voice wobbled, the fear apparent as she clung tightly to her brother. "Me too," Alex admitted, his tiny hands trembling as he searched for the comforting grip of his mother's. Then, a sudden chill swept through the room, as if the darkness itself had a presence. It was suffocating, pressing down on their chests. Mary strained her ears, listening. There it was again, the laughter. It was closer now, echoing inside the cabin like a cruel melody. It crawled along the walls, wrapping around them like an unseen predator, hungry and waiting. "Stay close," Mary commanded, forcing herself to sound calm. She reached out blindly until her fingers brushed against the cold wall. The furniture felt alien in the dark, menacing shadows lurking behind each piece. "Mom, look!" Alex cried, pointing toward a sliver of light seeping from beneath the door. "Don't!" she snapped. Her instinct screamed to stay put, but curiosity clawed at her mind. What was out there? Was it the figure from the lake? The one with the awful, twisted smile? The knock came again, louder, as if the unseen thing were trying to break through. "Mary, open the door." "Mom, it sounds like... Jenna's voice trailed off. Mary held her breath, fear tightening in her throat. "What?" "Like Dad," Alex whispered, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. A heart-wrenching chill ran down Mary's spine. They had buried him after that awful accident, hadn't they? "No, it can't be. It's not him." She fought against the overwhelming dread that surged through her. "Yes, it is. I know it is," Alex cried out, his eyes wide with horror. "Let him in, Mom." "No, we can't open the door," Mary shrieked, her voice desperate. The laughter burbled and morphed into a wail creeping under her skin. "Mom, please!" There was no changing their minds. The pounding became frantic now. "Mary, let me in. I'm cold. Help me." "Stop it!" she yelled, trembling. The door shook against the weight of their pleas. Had they really just woken something up? Or was this a nightmare she couldn't wake from? Then came another shift in the darkness. The air was charged, pregnant with some kind of anticipation. Shadows danced at the corners of the room, cloaked figures forming just out of reach. Mary's breath came short. She could practically taste the fear. In that moment, the lights flickered back to life with a surreal brightness. Mary squinted, disoriented as her eyes adjusted. But the moment she looked at the door, she froze. A shadow loomed just outside the window. The face was unmistakable, grinning in that sickening way as if rejoicing in their fear. "It's him! It's really him!" Jenna screamed, collapsing onto the floor in terror. "Mom, what do we do?" Alex whimpered, clutching at his sister. Mary felt the darkness tightening once more. The laughter resumed, warping back into that haunting drawl. "Let me in, Mary." The words twisted in her mind, leaving her breathless. It wasn't just a voice. It was something far more sinister, twisting memories and identities into one grotesque taunt. "Close your eyes," she ordered, shutting her own tightly, clenching her fists as hot tears streamed down her cheeks. She heard a rush of movement, like something brushing against the door, the walls whispering its secrets. "If you open this door, you will see." "What?" Mary demanded, feeling adrenaline surge through her veins. But the voice faltered, replaced by a cacophony of whispers. "You will know." And with that, everything dissolved back into darkness. "Mom," Jenna sobbed, sounding lost. "Stay close! Do not leave my side!" Mary shouted, her heart pounding with frenzied desperation. But what if the only escape was through the very darkness they feared? What if by staying together they had unknowingly invited it in? Suddenly, a soft voice emerged in the gloom.
What if I told you I know the truth? Mary's heartbeat stuttered. What truth? What lay ahead in the void? As the shadows surged, she braced herself. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be the end. Not yet. The darkness pressed in, thick and choking, wrapping around Mary like a shroud. She could feel the weight of Jenna and Alex beside her, their small, trembling bodies anchoring her in this surreal nightmare. But the shadows seemed alive, swirling and creeping toward her, taunting her with their whispers. "What truth?" Mary rasped, her voice barely a whisper. She fought the urge to open her eyes, knowing the darkness was a cruel friend. Whatever lurked outside could be waiting to pounce at the first sign of weakness. "I know what happened," the voice persisted, smooth and sinister, curling around her heart like a vice. "I know what you lost." "What do you want?" shouted Mary, her tremors rising once more. "Who are you?" "Just a friend," it replied, the laughter echoing like a distant thunderclap. "Someone who understands, someone who can help you, if you'll only let me in." "You're lying!" Mary screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. She could hear Jenna's soft sobs, Alex's ragged breaths as they clung to one another. They were all she had left, and she would do anything to protect them. Suddenly, the floor creaked ominously, each groan vibrating through the old wood like a predator's growl hungry for its prey. A flicker of light momentarily broke through, illuminating the chaos around them. In that brief moment, she saw the silhouettes of many figures looming outside, their faces blurred but filled with hunger. It was a moment too quick to grant her the understanding she desperately sought. Then, like a punch to the gut, the light sputtered and died. Once again, they were lost in the void. Mary could only hear the soft, lingering echoes of the voice. "You will find me at the center of the truth, Mary. You must seek it, or suffer the consequences." "What consequences?" she challenged, but fear gripped her heart like icy fingers.
"Chaos is just a heartbeat away," the voice sang, twirling in the silence. "And your sweet children, they may not be safe for long." A jolt of terror electrified Mary, her adrenaline flooding her system as she sprinted forward instinctively, babbling a fierce mantra. "It's not true! Stay with me! Stay together!" Something moved, a heavy thud resonating against the door as her heart thudded in her chest. Then the whispers turned clearer, more urgent, melding into tense laughter that threatened to break her resolve. Just then, without warning, a crash shattered the silence, the door splintering at the hinges as a gust of wind echoed through the room, snuffing out the last remnants of light. "No!" Mary yelled, instinctively pulling Jenna and Alex closer, her thoughts racing. Could the thing outside truly harm her children? Or was it all just a trick of the mind, a cruel puppet show preying on her deepest fears? With no thoughts of retreat, she thrust herself toward the darkness before her. "We need to go!" she urged. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her thoughts. "But where?" Jenna whimpered, fear etched across her small face, a face lit only by dim moonlight trickling inside from the shattered door. "Anywhere but here," Mary insisted, bracing for whatever terror awaited them. They started moving, feet stumbling, breath caught in throats, navigating through the overwhelming shadows that threatened to consume them. The chilling laughter returned, echoing mockingly in the abyss. "What's waiting on the other side, Mary?" it taunted, the edges of its voice sliding into a malicious purr. "You might not like the truth you find, or what it means for your children." They stumbled forward, plunged into a maze of unseen horrors, the figure lurking behind them drawing closer, Just when it felt like all hope had been lost, a faint glimmer appeared down one of the shadowy corridors. Mary knew they had to decide, take a chance on that flicker of light or surrender to the darkness. "Keep moving," she urged, though doubt whispered dangerously. What awaited them in that beacon of truth? As they drew nearer, the light pulsed, casting eerie shapes on the walls, and just before she could step into it, the whispers grew silent, hanging in the air like a quiet breath before the storm. What revelation lay just beyond? Was truth a salvation or a curse? A moment hung like an eternity in the air. Would they dare take the next step? With a determined breath, Mary stepped into the light, the warmth engulfing her momentarily, filling her with false hope. But it was dimmer than she expected, the flickering glow barely illuminating a narrow path lined with twisted shadows. Jenna and Alex hesitated, clutching each other tightly, their eyes reflecting uncertainty. "Hold on to me!" Mary shouted, her voice wavering. She could almost feel the weight of the dread creeping up behind them, pushing her forward as if it was a cruel guardian urging her to a terrible fate. As they moved deeper into the corridor, the light shifted, casting grotesque shapes against the walls. A reflection of their fears danced in the shadows, figures with hollow eyes and gaping mouths, whispering their secrets. But something else emerged too, the outline of a tall figure, cloaked and still, standing at the far end. The pulse of its dark presence synchronized with Mary's growing panic. "Who is that?" Alex squeaked, pointing at the looming silhouette. Mary's heart raced, disbelief mixing with horror. "Stay close," she hissed, pulling them tighter to her side. But every instinct screamed at her to run back, to plunge into the darkness once more. This truth felt more like a trap, and every step she took drew her deeper into its clutches. "Welcome, Mary," the voice spoke, the voice dripping with sinister familiarity. It sent a chill rippling down her spine. "What do you want?" Mary shouted, finding her voice wavering as fear coiled within her. "Don't you see?" it replied, a smile curling around unnaturally sharp teeth. "You have already found what you sought. Light and darkness are intertwined, my dear. You can't escape the truth of what binds you here. The past, the loss, it clouds your judgment." "Stop!" she cried, her mind racing back to the haunting memories she tried to bury. "I don't want to hear it." A cruel laugh filled the corridor, echoing off the walls like breaking glass. "You cannot escape it. It has come for you, and it will consume. Tell me, what would you sacrifice for the safety of your children?" At that moment, Mary felt time slow. She glanced at Jenna and Alex, their faces etched with worry, tears glimmering in their eyes. The shadows seemed to close in tighter around them, their whispers swirling into a chorus of despair. Your love or their lives? The question burrowed into her mind, sharp and insistent. "Don't listen," Mary urged, realizing how close the darkness was, almost suffocating. She had to break this nightmare. But before she could act, Jenna cried, "Mommy, I can't breathe." Time snapped back as Mary noticed the shadows grasping at her children, tendrils of darkness wrapping around their ankles like creatures trying to pull them down. Fear shot through her. "No, let go of them," she screamed, yanking them backward. As she did, the tall figure lunged, mist swirling around it, hungry and wrathful. "They will pay for your rejection. The truth is a weight, Mary." With renewed fury, Mary turned and took off, dragging Jenna and Alex behind her, their feet pounding on the cold floor in a desperate race against the impending horror. The darkness roared, fierce whispers growing into maddening shrieks that echoed in her ears. "Where do we go?" Alex yelled, panic clawing at him. "Anywhere, just run," Mary shouted back, glancing over her shoulder.
The corridor twisted unpredictably, paths diverging as if the darkness itself was shifting, with the tall figure lurking ever closer, its hunger palpable.
"There is no escape," it shouted, its voice ricocheting off the walls like a warning bell. Just as they reached another fork in the dark passage, a strong gust of wind slammed through, extinguishing the meager light entirely. They halted, their breaths hitching in their throats, hearts racing with terror. Mary could feel the presence pressing in on them, cold and calculating. Every instinct screamed for her to keep moving, but she steeled herself for the next decision. "Left or right?" she rasped, the options slicing through her. But before she could hear their answer, a voice broke through the dark haze, one that was softer yet firm, almost like a delicate whisper amidst thunder. "Follow me." The light flickered on again, illuminating a new path ahead, revealing an exit just beyond. But was it truly an exit? Could they trust what lay ahead, or was it another trap designed to lure them into a final confrontation with the darkness lurking just beyond their reach? They had no choice but to decide, step back into the unknown, or find the truth that could save them all, if it wasn't already too late. Mary hesitated, her heart racing, each beat echoing in the silence, squashing her thoughts. The crumbling corridor was alive, twisting under her feet as if it had a mind of its own. The shadows stalked them with palpable hunger. The voice lingered in the air, a siren's call wrapped in the sweetness of hope, yet dripping with dread. "Mommy!" Jenna's small hands gripped Mary's tighter. There was a raw urgency in her tone, fear solidified into a desperate plea. "Please, Mommy, we have to get out. That thing, I feel it." I know. Mary choked back her own panic, barely coherent, as the darkness pressed closer and closer. "Just trust me." Murmurs swirled around them like the smoke from a fire, blending with the flickers of light. Wisps of black filled the corners of her vision, taunting and sneering, reminiscing about things best forgotten. Without another thought, Mary plowed forward into the light, her fingers brushing against the walls, searching for something solid. "Follow the light," the voice beckoned again, once more shattering the silence, mingling reassurance with something darker. "You do wish to save them, don't you?" Mary's breath caught in her throat. If only she could turn back time, re-choose the paths that led them here. But guilt quickly twisted into resolve. "We can't give in. We need to escape." "Step this way." The voice pulsed, creating a heartbeat she could almost feel in her chest. The children exchanged glances, confusion mirroring in their wide eyes. They ventured deeper, the flickering light emboldening their steps against the suffocating shadows. The air felt charged, thick with the scent of dampness and something else, something rotten lurking just beneath the surface of it all. "Mommy," whispered Alex, his small voice quavering, "what if it's a trick?" Torn between fear and necessity, Mary's instincts kicked in. "Then we stick together. No matter what happens, we keep moving." Suddenly the ground beneath their feet trembled, and Mary staggered. The laughter echoed again, reverberating within the confines of the dark space, morphing into a cacophony of amusement. "You think you can outrun the truth. You can't escape what you are." Before Mary could answer, the shadows morphed, enveloping them in an inky abyss. A flicker of light vanished, plunging them into a suffocating darkness. "Close your eyes!" Mary yelled, grasping her children's hands with a fervor that surged through her. But it was too late. From behind them she heard it. Whispers morphing into screams, trapped secrets clawing at their eardrums. "Let them see, let them hear." The tall figure emerged once more, its razor-sharp smile cutting through the darkness like a knife. "You chose the light, believing it would lead you to safety, but it has just revealed the truth, Mary. Your past will haunt you until the end." Mary's heart thundered, a primal ache igniting within her lungs. She felt Jenna shaking beside her, Alex gasping for breath.
As the walls constricted around them, she could almost feel the shadows grasping for her children, the warmth of their lives seemingly ebbing away. "Run!" she screamed, propelling them forward through the consuming blackness. The world beneath them trembled, fear tangling in their throats as the chilling voice followed them. "Will you save them when the final cost is revealed?" They burst forward, the cold fingers of dread wrapping tighter around their limbs. At the last moment, a frayed light ignited again, shining upon a door in the wall, a hope rooted in desperation. "There! We can escape!" Just as they were about to reach the handle, an earth-shattering howl erupted, crashing through the air, sending tremors through the very fabric of their existence. Shadows curled and intertwined, fiercer than before, devouring the light around them. Mary clasped her children tighter, their fingers slipping against the slick, cold metal of the door. "Mommy, I don't want to die!" Alex choked out, fear-stricken. "It's not over yet! We must go now!" But the moment hung heavy, the door looming before them, a question hanging in the air. What would they find inside? With a surge of determination, Mary twisted the doorknob, her heart pounding in her chest, praying that they wouldn't be pulled apart by the shadows. The door creaked open with a groan that sent chills down her spine, revealing a void of blinding light that swallowed them whole. They stumbled through the threshold, a whirlwind of light and shadow colliding around them.
But the safety she had hoped for twisted ominously into a nightmare. The room was vast, stretching beyond what her eyes could see, and the air hummed with an electric pulse, vibrating against her skin. "Where are we?" Jenna's tiny voice broke through the chaos, but Mary could barely form a response. She looked down, her children clinging to her skirt, their faces stricken with fear. The stark room was lined with mirrors, each reflecting distorted images of the trio. Ghostly visages danced behind them, faces both familiar and unknown, silently pleading for release. The reflections became animated, breaking into twisted whispers. "Save us! Save her!" Their words pressed against Mary like ice-cold fingers, triggering a flash of memories she had long buried. "No, we're not here to help you," she shouted, trying to silence the torment of her past. But the memories were relentless. "Mommy, is that us?" Alex squeaked, pointing to a particularly haunting mirror showing a scene she recognized all too well, the happiness of their family, before the tragedy, before the darkness had seeped into their lives. "No, don't look!" Mary pulled them away, but the reflections twisted into her childhood, her own desperate pleas for help echoing in her ears. Moments she thought she'd escaped danced mockingly in the glass. "You think you can abandon us?" hissed a voice, low and sinister, crawling into her mind. It was just one countless shadow. It was like a living thing, seeping through the fractures in her heart. With every heartbeat, the air grew heavier, thick with despair. The whispers turned into shrieks, clawing at her sanity. "You made us! You birthed this darkness!" Jenna's shaking intensified. "Mommy, I can't take it." Mary grasped her children tightly, her body brimming with trepidation. She could almost feel the walls closing in, the mirrors blurring into a disorienting depth. "Listen to me. We have to leave. It's not real." "No escape," mocked the figure from before, its smile razor-sharp, toes just beyond the light. "You are trapped in your guilt." Suddenly, the lights flickered, pulsating in sync with her racing thoughts. It couldn't be true, could it? Was the darkness conjured from her own pain? The twisted memories morphed into horrific images of loss and despair, embodying the innocence she had lost. A strangled cry escaped her lips as she turned back toward the door. "This way! We have to get back!" They navigated through the maze of mirrors, the laughter of shadows chasing them, bitter and mocking. But as she reached for the doorway, it slammed shut, the light extinguishing into darkness once more. The shadows lunged, howling like banshees, clawing at her presence. "Your past is your prison." Fingers of dread curled around their throats as the air thickened. The silhouettes danced closer, faces she recognized now without a doubt, and their cries became unbearable. "You left us. Do you wish to fight us, or will you join us?" In the darkness, memories erupted, wielding their own power. This time she could feel her resolve crumbling as they surrounded her, dripping with guilt and despair. "Mommy, please!" Jenna's voice was barely a whisper now, snapping Mary from the haze, igniting her spirit. "Hold on! Just hold on!" she yelled, throwing herself back against the door. She could feel the weight of every choice crashing down, but there was no time for reflection. With a surge of primal energy, she hurled herself at the door again, this time breaking through the fog that threatened to consume her completely. Would they burst through the other side, or was there another fate awaiting them in the abyss beyond? A crack of light broke through the darkness ahead, and Mary pushed through with every ounce of strength she had, clutching her children as they stumbled blindly forward, hoping for freedom, or facing the truth they never wanted to confront. But who would they become once they crossed the threshold? Would they emerge unscathed, or would the shadows have already claimed their souls? The blinding light swallowed them, and the world outside felt like a distant memory. As the light faded, they found themselves outside, but not in the way Mary had imagined. This place felt wrong. Nothing behaved as it should. The sky was a sickly green, the ground unyielding, almost like concrete, but with a soft, pulsing texture underneath. "Mommy?" Jenna's voice tremored, pulling Mary into the reality of their terrifying surroundings. The trees loomed like ominous giants, their bark twisted and gnarled, branches reaching out as if to ensnare them. "Where are we?" asked Alex, his wide, innocent eyes darting about in fear. "I don't know," Mary said, glancing back at the door they had just escaped, but it was gone, replaced by a grotesque mural that changed shapes as if alive, their reflections staring back at them, contorted with sorrow and despair. A swarm of blackbirds burst above them, squawking, their cries echoing like harbingers of doom. As Mary shielded her eyes from the chaos, she felt it, the whispers again, a cacophony of tortured souls stretching across the vastness of the new landscape. "Help us! Free us!" they screamed in unison, the echoes pressing on her chest like a weight too heavy to carry. Each word felt like knives, cutting deeper into Mary's thoughts. "Stop!" she screamed. She clenched her fists, fighting the rise of despair that clawed at her mind. But the shadows weren't waiting. They surged forward, dark tendrils creeping up from the corners of the forest, hungry and eager like predators smelling fresh prey. "Mommy!" Alex cried again, gripping her leg tightly. "We need to run!" Mary shouted, thrusting her arms around her children as they stumbled backward. They turned away from the shadows, racing towards what seemed to be an opening in the twisted forest. But it wasn't an escape. It was a trap. The path led them deeper into an abyss, every step pulling them into darker memories. Laughter echoed in waves, disturbing, taunting. A mirage of their past, family gatherings replaced by shadows of loss. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. "Mommy, look!" Jenna pointed. A figure emerged from behind a tree, its limbs contorted, skin pallid. It moved with a shudder, its face obscured by darkness, but they could detect the hollow eyes that seemed to bore into Mary's soul. "You brought them here," it whispered, voice like rusted metal. "To make amends, or to suffer." "No!" Mary shouted, a defiance she didn't quite feel. But there was no time. The shadows pressed in, hungry, ravenous for retribution. "Please, save us, join us," the voices echoed as they drew closer. The world spun around her, blurred edges creeping in. A wave of faces, those she had failed, shimmered and dissolved.
"Mommy!" Jenna shrieked, clinging tightly as the ground split open, yawning like a mouth determined to swallow them whole. "Run!" Mary cried, feeling the pull of the chasm beneath them. They raced forward, hearts pounding, adrenaline bursting through their veins. With every ounce of strength, Mary kept them moving, dodging between the grotesque trees. Yet every glance back met pools of darkness, spreading like ink, chasing them relentlessly. "Mama, I can't!" Jenna wailed, her little legs slowing against the weight of fear. "Just a little further," Mary urged, but a dark figure loomed in front of them. The air crackled with malice, and its voice sliced through reality. "You can't escape what you've lost." "Please, just let us go," Mary begged, tears spilling down her cheeks. But the shadows crowded around, closing tight like a noose. Panic surged, and Mary felt herself falter. Darkness engulfed them all, wrapping around her, whispering promises, threatening to consume everything she loved. In one desperate moment, she tore her gaze from the encroaching darkness and looked into her children's eyes. "Whatever happens, I won't leave you." The shadows lunged. Mary's heart raced, a drumbeat of desperation. Would they fall into this abyss together, or would the nightmares consume them, devouring every ounce of hope in their hearts? In the depths of despair, a sudden flash of blinding light sparked once more. Was it their salvation, or another trap laid by the darkness? The light enveloped them, but it was different this time. Instead of warmth, it chilled Mary to her core. It stung her eyes, that brilliant flash morphing into shapes, blurring her sanity. She could barely see, but she could feel it, the air crackling with energy, a charge that made her skin prickle. "Mommy!" Jenna's small voice cut through the haze, trembling like a frayed wire. "Hold on!" Mary shouted, clutching her children tightly. The light began to fade, and in its place came the mutted colors of an enclosed space.
As her vision cleared, they found themselves cramped within a small, dimly lit room. The surroundings were eerily familiar, the memories flooded back, but twisted. It was their lake house, but just a shadow of its former self. The walls pulsated, oozing a dark substance that dripped to the floor, pooling like a canvas of despair. "Why are we here?" Alex whispered, his voice shaking. Mary searched her instincts, knowing the answer was laced with dread. This was a place of illusions, echoes of their past, memories tainted with grief and regret. "Stay close," she said, feeling the urge clawing up her throat. They crept forward, the floors creaking beneath their feet, as if the house itself was alive, breathing deeply, anticipating their next move. In the corners, shadows lurked, shifting like thoughts too dark to bear. Suddenly, a low moan echoed through the halls, growing in intensity, a chorus of tortured cries that circled around them. Mary froze, recognizing the sound from her dreams, the same people she had failed, watching her from the abyss of the lake, beckoning for release. "Mommy, I don't like this," Jenna whimpered, her tiny fingers clasping Mary's hand tighter. "I know, sweetheart." Mary forced a smile, but panic flickered behind her eyes. She needed to keep it together for them. "Let's move." They stepped into the main living area, where the once cozy fireplace was now a jagged maw brimmed with blackened embers. The walls flickered with shadows, images of family dinners, laughter, and warmth warped into grotesque versions of themselves. Each memory carried the weight of her failures, the joy replaced by hollow eyes staring right back at her. "Is this real?" Alex asked, his face pale. The room warped slightly, as if testing their belief in reality. "Nothing here is what it seems,"
Mary murmured, glancing around nervously. Then a figure emerged, gliding out from the shadows. It was familiar, yet morphed. Her mother, trapped in an expression of sorrow and loss. "Mary, you can't run from what you've done. You need to face us." "Face who? What do you want from us?" Mary shouted, anger ripping through her fear. "Redeem us, or join us," the apparition whispered, the air thickening with desperation, wrapping around Mary like a vine, choking her slowly. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jenna cried, her voice breaking through the tension. With resolve, Mary pushed forward. "We can do this together. Just stay with me, please." But the shadows pulsed stronger, reaching out, enveloping Jenna and Alex, pulling them back with a sinister grip. Mary felt their fear surge through her, feeding into the darkness, daring to claim them. "Save them!" she screamed, stretching her hands out, but the shadows snatched at her feet, an anchor pulling her deeper into despair. "Join us! Let go!" echoed the voices, tempting, seductive. Mary's heart raced, memories flashing, 1,000 moments of happiness turned into strings of sorrow, each one twisting and knotting tighter around her. "No, I won't!" she shouted, feeling her children slipping away. As she wrestled against the shadows, a decision loomed, a choice between saving herself or risking everything for her children. They were losing ground. The light flickered dimly in the darkness, a faint hope carried on the breeze. "Mommy!" they cried, their voices a mix of fear and faith. Mary clung tighter, praying the light would guide them. But as the darkness enveloped them, a jagged eruption of wild laughter burst forth, echoing against the walls. Could hope shine through the depths of despair? Or were they forever destined to become echoes, lost in a nightmare they could never escape? The echoes of laughter crescendoed, twisting into screams that clung to Mary's skin like sharp thorns. She felt the shadows tighten their grip on her, pulling her toward the void as the faces of lost loved ones blurred along the edges of her vision. Each mournful expression, each whispered plea became an unbearable weight, pushing her to the brink of surrender. "Mommy!" Jenna cried, her voice shrill as she struggled against the dark tendrils that wound around her small frame. "Hold on to me! Fight!" Mary shouted, desperation clawing at her throat as she tugged at Jenna and Alex, attempting to peel them away from the consuming darkness. "We are stronger together!" The very air charged around them, alive with the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole, a menacing reminder of the choices they'd made and the family they had once been. Shadows writhed like serpents, eager to pull them into their depths. But Mary knew that giving in would forsake them all. Love surged within her, feeding her resolve. "Mom, I'm scared!" Alex cried, his voice cracking as he glanced back at the looming apparition of their past. Mary spun, her back to the darkness as she faced her children, determination blazing in her eyes. "Look at me! Is this what we want? To lose each other?" she urged, panic mixing with fierce love. "We are not our fears or our failures. We are a family, and families don't give up on each other." "But it hurts," Jenna whimpered, tears blazing down her cheeks, glistening like stars amidst the darkness. "Then let the love we share be stronger than the shadows!" She was yelling now, sparking energy in her own heart, channeling the warmth that had once brought them joy. A tenderness that had once connected them all flowed in waves through her veins, pushing against the chilling grip of despair. "Mom!" they both shouted in unison, their eyes brightening as the anger of shadows lost its hold, if only for a moment. "Together!"
commanded Mary, clutching their hands tightly, and with a fierce scream that felt as if it originated from the core of her soul, she raised their joined hands, defying the darkness. "We refuse to become what you want us to be." As her voice pierced the air, the shadows shuddered, recoiling as if burned by her fierce declaration. In that instant, a crack of light broke through, an unyielding beacon shining brighter than any darkness could smother. "Mommy, it's working!" Alex shouted, a smile breaking through his fear. "Keep going!" she yelled, pushing past the pain, the memories, the overwhelming urge to surrender. "Focus on the love we have, the family we still are." Their hands glowed, a fiery warmth enveloping them, pushing the shadows back inch by inch. The laughter turned to cries of rage as the figures they'd come to dread distorted and shrieked in agony. Mary could feel them thrashing against the walls, trying desperately to reclaim what was slipping from their grasp. "Let us go of us!" Mary shouted again, determination flooding her system. "You will never take our love away!" With one final push, the entwined trio pressed deeper into the glowing light, the warmth surging back into their hearts like a river breaking free of its dam. The shadows shrieked, twisting away in horror, unable to withstand the brilliance of their unity. And with that, they burst free, falling onto solid ground, together. They lay there, panting and gasping, but the oppressive heaviness had lifted, banished by the incandescent force of their bond. "Mom?" Jenna whispered, her voice small and hesitant as she turned her head to scan the surroundings. "It's okay, sweetie," Mary replied, wrapping her arms tightly around them both. The world felt alive again, the trees now awash in vibrant colors, bursting with life and sunlight streaming through the branches. "We're safe! We made it!" But as Mary looked back at the retreating shadows, she could still feel their presence lurking just out of reach. They weren't truly gone. The darkness would always linger as a reminder of what they had faced. In that moment, Mary realized the shadows wouldn't just disappear. They needed to coexist with the light. "Mom, are we really safe?" Alex asked, his fear still lingering in his tone. Mary nodded firmly, even as uncertainties lingered in her mind. "Yes, as long as we have each other, we are safe." They stood together, united, ready to embrace the new dawn, a bond forged through battles fought against the dark. "Let's go home," Mary urged, holding her kids close as they began their journey down the sunlit path. As they walked, whispers of hope danced around them, a gentle reminder that even in the face of darkness, love would always lead the way home. And in that moment of clarity, Mary understood. Sometimes embracing the light meant accepting the darkness within. But they were ready. The end. Friends, this is the moment to show your support. If you want to keep up with more heart-pounding stories like this, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button immediately to help our channel grow and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending. Only true fans know how vital it is to support the channel through your engagement.